all of that. Can you tell us about the man, Abdallah Uba Adamu? Who are you?
Well, the man, Abdallah Uba Adamu, is a short guy, just about 5 feet. He's a fat guy with a big belly. That is because I drank a lot of Coke, but I've stopped doing that now because the doctor said I'm pre-diabetic, so I have to stop and start drinking water all the time. I was born in 1956 in Deneji in Kano City. Did the usual thing, primary school, secondary school in Kano, and then Ahmad Bello University for my degree. And after my degree in 1979, I went to Bayero University as a graduate assistant. But to be very frank with you, my desire was to become a research scientist. But the Faculty of Science in Bayero University rejected my application for a graduate assistant. So Faculty of Education took me on because I read science education. So I became a graduate assistant in science education. And that was in July 1980. In 1981, I was given an opportunity to go to the University of London to do my master's, where I spent 2 years and did an MA in science education. I came back in 1983, spent another 2-3 years before I went back to the UK in 1985 as a Commonwealth scholar. I was the first British Commonwealth scholar from Northern Nigeria. And I did my DPhil or PhD, whatever you like to call it, at Sussex University in Brighton, Palma. I finished in 1988, came back to Bayero University, and continued working as a lecturer, academic work, reading, research, and doing all sorts of things that academicians are supposed to do. Sometimes in 1990, the government introduced reforms in higher education, where we have all this course unit system that we're using now. And somebody needed to understand what it is all about. And I was lucky enough to be given Fulbright African Senior Research Scholar to University of California, Berkeley, in 1990 to 1991 in order to understand the system, to understand what it is. And I would say that was the beginning of my interest in the internationalization or transglobalization of ideas and effects. The reason is because it was in Berkeley that I discovered that the Nigerian education system is American education system. It was brought to us by what you call American returnees. That is, Americans who have been to the United States, they have studied there, and they came back and became advocates for American type of education. And the first school to benefit from American structure of education was Aye Toro High School. Now, I don't know where Aye Toro is. I know it's somewhere in the
state.
Yeah, that's right. So Aye Toro High School was called high school, and it had junior high school and senior high school. So it was the first American experiment, and it was from that model that the federal government decided to introduce the national policy on education in 1973, when by 1990 it has matured into the universities. So that's when we have this junior high school.
The 6-3-3-4 system.
That's right. Junior high school, senior high school. At the beginning it was junior high school, senior high school, before we suddenly realized that no, we are not in America. So it was like junior secondary school, senior secondary school, and then 4 years of university. And that first year in the university is spent on foundation courses. That's exactly American. That's what I discovered. And I published a book on this in New York called Reform and Adaptation in Nigerian Higher Education, published by the Edwin Mellon Press. And that was in 1992. I came back and continued doing my work. In 1993, I went to Italy as a Rockefeller Foundation visiting fellow at Bellagio Research Center, which is near Lake Como, where I spent some 6 weeks working on a book on the history of Bayero University, which actually never got to be published. But eventually, a history of Bayero University was published, and part of the paper that I developed in Italy became part of that book, and I was one of the editors of the book. In 1997, I became a professor of science education and comparative higher education. And that is when the Epiphany movement came in, and I said, that's it. I have paid my dues. I have done what I could. Because, to be very frank with you, I got into education reluctantly. What I wanted to do was to be admitted into the Faculty of Science to read microbiology. but I was very poor in mathematics.
Okay.
Yeah, my mathematics was very poor. I haven't got a good grades for mathematics, so for science education took me on. And I had wanted to become a research scientist, to try to understand the world, to understand how things work. I wasn't really interested in a job or in getting a cushy job or beautiful job. All I want is to discover how things work. And when that didn't work, I ended up in science education reluctantly. And even when I applied for a job in Bayer University, my main priority was the Faculty of Science. But they said that I didn't study BSc Biology or BSc Biological Sciences, therefore I will not be employed there. But the Faculty of Education was looking for a graduate assistant in science education. So they took me on and gave me a chance, and that's it. So I don't really envisage myself as a teacher teaching in a high school for the rest of my life. And I really don't envisage myself staying in education for the whole of my life, which is ironic now that I'm a vice chancellor of a university. But my view is that education has reached a cul-de-sac. We have reached a point of no return. We have reached a point whereby we keep repeating the same thing over and over again. We keep saying government should do this, government should do that. If government does this, there will be less of this. But the demographics were not on our sides. You have a whole bunch of kids coming up into school every day. So you have one teacher, you have about 150 students, he is screaming, shouting, and nobody is hearing him. And I don't see myself living in that life. That's why I went to the university. So it is time to say sayonara to education. In 1996, the public culture in Kano started criticizing creativity. And when I say criticizing creativity, I'm referring to picture writers, people writing fiction but in Hausa language. And the public culture started to argue that these fiction writers were writing such enthralling fiction that they are responsible for the low performance of students in high schools. Students fail their examinations because they're not reading their textbooks, because they're reading novels.
Fiction.
They're reading fiction, and that fiction is romantic fiction. And to me, it is a little bit interesting in the sense that there are other parameters that could make students succeed. And nobody's looking at those parameters. They're only looking at fiction and saying it is fiction that is responsible for it. So what they decided to do in 1996 was to set up a censoring committee to look at the novels. And that's when I started saying, hey, let me take a look at these novels. What are they all about, really? And they're written in Hausa language. Mainly by women, but quite a lot of men also do write, but it's mainly by women, but it's all about romance. And when I read them, I discovered that all they are talking about is just simply simple romantic affair between a boy and a girl. Straightforward, meals and boons kind of thing. But then the reason the public culture reacted was because of the word soyayya. Soyayya in Hausa language means love. Now, Hausa people are, for most part, Muslim and mainly conservative. So the idea of coming out and talking about love in public space is against the moral and cultural sensitivities of the people. Because in Hausa language, the word love is only used in a particular context of a man and woman getting married. So it is not something that you are supposed to even acknowledge. You'll be surprised. A lot of people will tell you that their wives have never said, I love you. It is assumed that your wife loves you, but she won't open her mouth and say, I love you. It's a word that is verboten, prohibited. It's not something that you do in public sphere. And here are young writers, including women, writing about love, creating characters in dialogue that say, I love you, I also love you, and then even singing about love and things like that. And so the public culture was totally against it. And so I started studying it. I really don't care what they are writing about. I'm not interested in passing moral judgments. I'm interested in the fact that we have a dependent variable and an independent variable. We have one reaction, we have one action. And that's what I'm interested in, the action and the reaction. I'm interested in capturing it. And it was at that particular juncture that I reinvented myself as an anthropologist, as a cultural anthropologist, dealing with the way people live their lives, but this time through media. So I became a media anthropologist because what they are doing is using media as literature in order to communicate thoughts. And when I read some of them, I discovered that some of them are subversive in the sense that it's like they are protests, particularly the women writers. They are protesting the kind of cultural tradition that they find themselves in, but they cannot say anything about. They can't do anything about it. For instance, post-marriage, they don't like it, but there's nothing they can do. Another thing they don't like is co-wife. I mean, a person has a wife and then he decided to add another wife and they don't like it. So they create fictional elements in which either A, the principal character copes with the situation, and or B, rebels against the situation. The first novel that did actually that was called Soul, Al-Jannah Dunya, which means love, paradise on earth. Okay. And it's written by the first female fiction writer, Al-Hajjah Hafsat Abdul Wahid. Hafsat Abdul Wahid is from Zamfara State, Kano State, Zamfara State. She shares both states. And she's a very, very powerful writer. And what made her writing very interesting is the fact that she is pure Fulani. So people tend to really confuse Hausa and Fulani, and then they come up with this hyphenated expression, Hausa Fulani, which is just crazy. You're either Hausa or you're Fulani. But the vast majority of people who claim that they are Fulani cannot speak the Fulfulde language. They can only speak the Hausa language because the Hausa language has become the commercial language. It has become the urban language. So eventually it suppressed our own Fulani language. So we cannot speak the language anymore. Very few of us do. So my interest, therefore, is in this flow of reaction and counter-reaction against expression through the media. And eventually, when films came in, I also moved into studying films. So there are three things that determined my life at that time, but they remain suppressed. Music, literature, films.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTAI. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International. Your window to the world.
Coronavirus is real. Steps to avoid this pandemic. Wash your hands regularly or sanitize your hands. Keep social and physical distancing. Avoid crowded places. Stay at home unless absolutely necessary. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth if your hands are not clean. Avoid the spread of coronavirus. Coronavirus is real.
He's my father. He's a very caring father. He is very supportive. We find him a friend in him, someone we can confide in. He always has time for his family, and no matter the busy schedule he has, he's always there for us and always confide in him. Growing up around him is fun, it's educative, it's homely and supportive. Yes, he's always there for us. That captures everything. Right. There's no barrier. Yes, just that we know our limits, but anytime, anywhere is always available.
We were born in the same community and we grew up together. Professor Abdullah is very successful in education. He went all the way through. And being with him, I have learned a lot of things. Professor Abdullah is very diligent in terms of acquiring knowledge and his quest for making people uplift their lives, either in education, in culture, in everything. He's on to many things, apart from his academic life. He has been in research on Hausa culture in relation to modern media networks, how media networks affect Hausa culture. This is a very good thing because he has been a research person all his life, and sometimes you become confused as to what is his field of specialization, because he happens to be in all aspects of learning. There was a time when we were having a dinner with his colleagues, and one of his colleagues was asking him, what is the specialization of Abdullah? And somebody pointed at Abdullah and asked him and told him, ask him, why not ask him? So this indicates his desire to learn more in every field. And that took him to the position of acquiring dual professorship, first in education science and later in mass communication.
The first time I met Professor Abdullah Uba Adamu was in 1999 at the beginning of social media, when it becomes boom in Kano. So we met through what we call Kano Online, and from Kano Online we moved to Pina Hausa, which was the first social gathering of Hausa speakers in internet. That was the beginning of the relationship, and from there we have been together up to date. Well, Professor Abdullah Uba Adamu, I can say he's enigmatic. He's somebody that I can call an intellectual monarch. Somebody one can describe as a great teacher. Somebody who, if you want to learn, if you meet Professor Abdullah, you have no any problem. You will learn a lot from him. We learn a lot from him. We learn the art of argument. We learn the art of persuasive. We learn the art of reasoning, and the science of philosophy, and also research from him. One of his weak points, as far as I know from my experience, he's damn too kind and too accommodating. So that's what I can see about him, because this is what some people are taking advantage of, because he don't care. He's a professor. He can live. He can sit among even secondary school students, chat with them, argue with them, understand, extract what he wants to extract, and so on. So that's why some people are taking advantage of his kindness, his warmness, and they are going overboard in the relationship with him.
These are the three things that I was into. I love literature of all kinds. Every kid of my generation loved James Hadley Chase, Nick Carter, Harold Robbins, James Michener, and all that. And then films. The one that they showed on TV, Hawaii Five-0, Star Trek, and all that. And then, of course, films later, and the music. And mainly African-American music. James Brown, Marvin Gaye, the Ohio Players, and all those Kool and the Gang and things like that. So those are the ones that we listen to. And of course some African musicians like Osivisa and Dr. Nico from Congo and things like that. So, but these were suppressed. I have to get to school first. I have to go to finish high school. I have to go to the university. I have to get a degree, and then I can do whatever I want. And I feel that after graduating with a degree in science education, I don't want to teach in a secondary school. So that's why I applied to a university. And I had a year to think about it.
Okay.
And that 1 year was the NYSC year, which I spent in an absolutely beautiful village, a village that I really love. In fact, I went back as a vice chancellor. I went back last year to that village. It's called
somewhere in Imo State, right?
Omokurika. So if there's anybody from Omokurika listening to this, hello. I love you guys, and you will always be in my heart. I spent a year there as a youth corps, and I really loved the place. I loved the food. I loved the people. I loved the atmosphere. It was at the junction of Ahira, Mbize, and so at that time there was no road, so you have to use a motorbike to get in. But now there is a massive highway there, and I went back because I was made a chief in Enugu, in the Oka Ome 1 of Enugu. So I went with my traditional Igbo gear and all that. So with that, in that year, I reflected, and I realized that I don't want to kid myself. That my passion, my interest, is music, is literature, is films. So when 1996 began, the critical reactions in Kano airwaves about the bad language used in literature, about the way youth are being corrupted by writers, I picked up an interest. I said, this is what I'm talking about. I would love to use this. So it gave me an opportunity to use my scientific background to be able to investigate something from a scientific perspective, which is at the same time cultural. And that put me on a high pedestal because it enables me to use objectivity in order to understand cultural production. Like I said, I wasn't passing moral judgments. I wasn't interested in whether this is right or this is wrong. And I still am, definitely, absolutely, totally against censorship, because I believe that the author should be responsible for his work, and that there shouldn't be any moral guardians of the society that should determine what he should write.
Creativity should not be censored.
Should not be censored, should not be caged. It's not censorship, it's caging it. You are saying that this should be caged in a particular direction, and I'm saying this is wrong. And luckily, I have a father who is still alive, who was very, very liberal, very, very understanding, listens to music also, and most importantly encourages me in whatever I want to do. And he has never said, don't do it. Because when I told him, look, this is what people are doing, and they're beginning to get worried that I'm getting involved, he said, go for it. Go where your heart takes you, go for it. So I had a total endorsement from my dad, because he's a little bit of a rebel himself.
Now, I think I'll want you to take a pause there, Prof, because we have actually delved into an area that I would want you to really expatiate on, which is your love for literature, for books, for film, and for music. Interestingly, your genre of music which you're so passionate about is the rap music. And I look at where you're coming from. I look at the fact that you're from the northern part of Nigeria, just as you said, where a lot of these things are seen as being prohibitive. Now, at what point did the radicalization for you begin, or had it always been there, innate from childhood, and you just had an opportunity to blossom?
It had always been there, but it was suppressed because I grew up in an extremely conservative society, at least up to the age of 12, when we have to move to GRA when my father got a big job. But before that, I was living in the heart of the city, deep heart of the city. I didn't come from some kind of village outside the skirts of Kano. I was born and bred right inside the heart of the city, and that was deeply, deeply conservative. So the only thing that kept me company was the radio. So I listened to all these things on the radio. BOA, BBC, radio, television, Kaduna, and that they were playing foreign music, and that is what kept me company. But the expectation at that time was that you should go and do good things in the university, study hard and become a doctor, a pharmacist, something that the society can use. So you are like a product that is being palmed in order to improve the society. You are just another commodity the government is grooming so that the society can become better. So the whole idea of you having your own independent mind, independent soul, independent desire does not arise. You are being sponsored by the government, you are being paid by the government, at least in the north. So therefore you are a government property, so you have to do things that the government want. We're not even taught music when I was growing up. They still don't teach music in northern schools because music is seen as a low-level occupation. It's not the kind of thing that people will get into, even though musicians make a lot of money. But people tend to confuse griot music with other form of creativity. Even griot music is not patronage music. It is a creative. It's something that those guys that are singing the praises of other people or talking about the history of their people as griots, I have all these fantastic rhythmic ideas, and I've always loved it, but I have to suppress it. So when I got to California in 1990, rap had already started, and there I was in Berkeley, California, one of the most radical campuses of the University of California system. So you could imagine a Muslim boy from northern Nigeria who had all this passion for music thrown into the University of Berkeley, and nobody to say no. And that's when the dam just simply burst. Wow. And one of the key elements to the bursting of that dam was crisscross. 10-year-old kid, two of them with their pants backwards, and baggy. And then you got all these guys with the cap that has been turned down, bandanas, and then the chains and things like that. And that was this record, jump, and that was it. It just simply hit. But even prior to rap, me getting into rap, I've always been interested in experimental music, particularly German experimental music. So when I was in the University of London as a student and at the University of Sussex, I was listening to British bands. I even attended concerts. I was into heavy metal, progressive rock, hard rock, so Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Genesis, Pink Floyd. All these are my kind of musicians. I have tons and tons of their music. But one of the bands that I like was Marillion. I even attended their concert. Phil Livy, who were actually from Ireland, I also attended their concert in London. And for German musicians like Tangerine Dream, Klaus Schulze, Robert Schroeder, I love their music, and I attended their concerts. I attended a concert in London at the Dominion Theatre, which is right by Oxford Street. And that concert was by Tangerine Dream. And about 6 months later, they released an album called Logos. And that album was the recording of that concert at the Dominion Theatre. And I was like, hey, if you listen carefully, you can hear my voice. I was shouting also. Yes. I mean, people were shouting all over, and that was my voice in the Tangerine Dream album. Of course, it's silly. There was no way you could hear my voice or all that because they were able to filter out all the voices. But when I was doing my PhD in Brighton, they also came to Brighton, and I applaud them. The same thing with Klaus Schulze. When Klaus Schulze performed in London at Hammer's Odeon, I followed him there. But I didn't like his sports. No football, no volleyball, definitely, absolutely no basketball. Just, no basketball.
No, definitely not.
Definitely, absolutely no basketball, okay? I mean, a tiny guy like this, trying to jump the hoop is not possible. So I just couldn't be bothered. So it's just the music. I was busy looking at the development of the house of film industry because the writers became film makers. So I followed them. I followed their writing, and then I transformed also into a film cultural critic, looking at what they did. My only grouse is that most of what they have done or they were doing at that time was based on Indian motifs.
Yes.
So they were looking at Indian movies and then just simply copying them as house of films. And I said, look, you have a rich culture, okay? Why don't you capture that? And they didn't like that, and they felt that I was criticizing them unnecessarily. And that is part of the reason why at National Open University of Nigeria, when I became the Vice Chancellor, we pushed forward the idea of film production, BSc film production, in order to teach people how to become formal film makers. So I spent years studying film literature. Then in 2003, Radio Freedom was opened in Kano. And that was another radical radio station because they were playing everything that they could. And that is when some young people in Kano, starting with a guy called Bello Ibrahim, but you don't go about calling yourself Bello Ibrahim and become a rapper. So he calls himself Billy O.
Wow.
So Billy O came up with this idea of rapping, and at the beginning people thought like he was crazy or something like that.
Every day, every night and day. Home on away, every day, every night and day. Home on away, jump around the world and get down.
But it was novel. I mean, people were tired of the traditional music. Nobody was listening to it anymore. Youth want something. So the only people who listened to the traditional music were the old babas, the older generation, But those young kids want to listen to something. They listen to American music quite okay. They listen to Ice-T, Ice Cube, they do Snoop Dogg, they listen to all these guys. But wouldn't it be nice if they could hear somebody singing in Hausa language? And then Billy O came along and started it. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And I traced him, said, I want to know who you are. And then we became friends. And then that's how I started getting into the rap community. Eventually, Ariwa 24 was established, and we encouraged the establishment of a rap section of Ariwa 24. And a whole section called Hausa Hip Hop was created, and it is anchored by Aminu Abba, aka Normis G, aka K Kauche. So Normis G is the guy who is anchored in that hip hop program, and he's one of my students in the mass communication department. So my passion for literature, film, and music led to academic studies of the development of these three disciplines in a Hausa Muslim society in northern Nigeria from a purely scientific perspective without making any judgment. Okay? Of course, the whole idea of scientific objectivity itself is something that is open to question. After all, the fact that you choose to study something and not another thing indicates bias itself to begin with. But I started focusing attention on that. The big break came in 2004 when a mentor of mine called Professor Graham Pernis from the University of London, who has been following me, and he's into Hausa literature, who has been following my work, invited me to Germany. And to be very frank with you, I was scared Scared because what I was doing was fun. What I was doing had no particular structure. I wasn't doing anything to become promoted or to become I was doing something because somebody has to do it. I was documenting it. I thought that somebody needs to document contemporary issues that are happening in northern Nigeria in the areas of popular culture. One of the areas that I got in very early enough, before anybody else, was online. Being into the internet. I was able to even create hooks. Hooks, yeah.
Yes, I saw.
On true type font, so that those writers, I did it for those writers, so that they, instead of using a pen to hook the characters, the accent, like in the Yoruba language, you have all these dots and accents and things like that. So the same thing in Hausa language. So I created the characters that will enable people to use accentuated writing. So it's not waka, but waka. So there is a glottal sound to it. So I got into the internet, into ICT right early enough, and the Department of Mass Communication started to invite me to go over there and teach online journalism. And then I was teaching all these issues about critical reviews of music. How do you criticize music? How do you criticize film? How do you criticize books? What kind of parameters do you use in the criticism of this? What do you look for? So it becomes my own education. In the process, I become educated. And then I continue writing. Because Kano is rich in data. That is why I would never, ever think of living in any other city, anywhere in the world except Kano. Because that's where the data is.
Now, Prof, sorry to quote you in there, because I know that we can go on and on, about your journey in the world of academics. Taking a look at all what you have achieved, especially in the area of the revolution, because it's been a one-man revolution for you. But taking a look at, the journey so far and the state of literature, film, and music, even in Kano, and by extension, northern Nigeria, how would you rate it?
High, very, very high. We have given it visibility. And the fact that academics have entered in has given it acceptability. But that does not mean that all academics like it. There are a lot of academics who still insist that it's a bad thing. I'm the only person who is saying it's neither good or bad. It is you who make it good or bad. But it is something that needs to be documented. Who determines right? Whose values are we using to determine what is right and what is wrong? So you have to decide for that for yourself. Like Rahama Sadao. Rahama Sadao, yeah, she came up into this film, hugging this boy, and then there was all these sort of problems and things like that. And people asked my opinion. I said, well, that is she's an artist. That's what the script asked her to do. It is up to her to decide whether she should accept the script or not. You could be asked to appear nude, and you could say, no problem. It's not me, it's my shadow. But you can reject it. So let the artist, let the creative person decide what he wants to do and what he wants to do according to his own conviction and according to their own conscience. But later on, she came and apologized on the radio to the Emir of Kano, to the people of Kano for what she has done, even though she's not from Kano. Yeah, but she feels like she has offended the sensibilities of people from Kano.
Yes, it's been fun all the way, and in having fun, you have carved a niche for yourself. Today, you are the Vice Chancellor of the National Open University. Take us through your daily routine.
Well, first of all, before we get at that, I was offered Vice Chancellorships to 5 other universities and I rejected them, including the National Open University of Nigeria in 2010. And the reason I rejected them is really because I don't want leadership positions. Leadership positions cage you, and you are expected to behave and act in a particular way. And when I first came, I was behaving like that. Typical chief executive officer, typical chief vice chancellor. But then I realized that I'm not being myself. I'm lying to myself. So I just, let me be Abdallah, let me be whoever I am, because I'm going to leave the chair. I'm not going to carry it with me. I'm going to go back to my life. I deal with musicians, with filmmakers, with writers, and we sit down, sit together and chill out. And jive five, high five, whatever. So, but here I am, caged in a particular expectation. So for the first few years, it was a little bit officious, but then I said, what the heck, let me be who I am. Now, the typical routine is 8 o'clock I'm up. By 9 I'm in the office. Got all those files to walk through. If I have not finished those files, I take them home to make sure that I finish them. But if I finish them, I go home and I go back to my papers. I'm always writing a paper. Right now, I have about 8 papers that I'm working on.
Wow.
Okay. But because of the office, you have to move up and down, you have to go to a conference, you have to lead the delegation, you have to receive delegation, and so on. So it has not been easy for me. But the routine is very simple. I don't even eat breakfast until I come to the office. And then lunch in the office. My wife used to cook the lunch for us, bring it down. We all form a community. Lunch is brought out in big coolers and all of us sit down and eat together because we are truly an offering university. The Vice Chancellor, me as a Vice Chancellor, I as the Vice Chancellor to sort of chill out with my colleagues. And I always ask people to chill out. To such an extent that at the study center in Lagos, they actually had a place called Professor Abdullah Chilling Point.
Wow.
And I was so proud of that place.
Wow.
Because the idea that the word to chill means to relax, to take it easy, has now become part of the narrative of the consciousness of our people, where they could create just a small lounge area. They pence it off and they said this is the chilling point. So after you finish work, you can just simply come there and sort of chill. So we also have here on the Jabi campus what we call the chilling spot, which is actually a building where you can go and drink whatever you want to drink. We don't care what you want to drink. And but there is a gymnasium there where people could do that. So we want people to go there and get peat and things like that.
Actually, I'm speechless when you ask me such questions because I have so many things to say, but I'll mention a few. He is a kind person, a soft person in terms of dealing with us as his own staff, and he is a hard-working person. He is somebody that is so nice and he is so dedicated to the job. So we learn a lot from him. Actually, I have a lot of experiences that stands out about him because he is somebody that I would describe as if he is a kind of a special boss that I have worked with several bosses, but in his own case, he is so unique in the sense that he is cool-headed person in dealing with the staffs and other people. No matter how painful it is, he comes down to listen to you and express his mind in a way that you understand your shortcomings or your mistakes, and immediately you deal with them and you get over whatsoever he wants you to correct about your job. He has soft words that motivate us to dedicate ourselves to the job more. Because when you see you have a good boss like that can be able to treat you as if you are his own daughter or his son, and at the end of the day you feel, let me just dedicate more of my time to do the job so that he will be satisfied because he is taking us all along.
But when I go home, it's like I told you, it's work. It's papers. There's a paper to write, there's a deadline to meet, there's a paper to write, there's a deadline to meet. Rarely on Saturdays, I just simply chill with my iPad. Got thousands of books, about 1,300 books on the iPad. And somebody keeps saying, how can you read all these books? I said, no, it's not about having a lot of books at one place. It's about the power and the knowledge that if I want to read 1,000 books, I can do it because it's in my iPad. I have an iPod in which I put in music. SOPA, it is 256 gigabytes.
Wow.
SOPA, I was able to load about 13,000 songs on it. And again, the same question. 13,000 songs, my God, why do you want to listen to 13,000 songs? And I told them, no, I don't want to listen to 13,000 songs. I'm not going to listen to 13,000 songs. But I like the feeling that if I do want to listen to 13,000 songs, I can, because I have the power to do this. It's not about the object, but the power. power of owning the object. And so my interest in music is diverse, from blues to blues rock, to heavy metal, to psychedelic rock, to progressive rock, to electronic, and to Malian blues music of the late Ali Parka Touré, and the Tishomaran music of the Tuaregs from Mali, all the way from Mali, Mauritania, and then to Niger Republic. They play the absolutely fantastic form of guitar music, which motivated me to buy my own guitar, actually, which I've never actually played because I can't play the music. And I remember when I brought the guitar from Germany one day at the Kano airport, they wanted to know what I was doing with the guitar. I said, play? You use the guitar to strum it? And they were like, but you... I said, okay, is there any problem with this? Because I see people bringing in bloody TVs. They got a big, huge TVs. I see people in bringing spare tires. And you have no problem with that, but you have a problem with me coming with a guitar and an amplifier. And they don't have any answer to that. So I was allowed to pass through. And then I bought a roll-up piano that can play.
Can you play that as well?
Yeah, well, I try to play the piano because there's a software application that teaches you piano and music theory. But then my biggest acquisition is a bagpipe. Scottish bagpipe, because I like the bagpipe music. Of course I can play it, but I could learn. And then there is a flute that I got from Istanbul when I travel. So I have all these musical instruments which I hope when I retire, then I go into full music production. I become a musician myself. Not really because I want to sell music and make money, but because it's fun.
Because you want to enjoy it.
Because I want to enjoy it. I want to be like the kind of guy who goes on stage and yet they pay him a lot of money.
Do you have those instruments here in Abuja, those music instruments here in Abuja, sir?
I never consider Abuja my home.
So you don't have any?
I don't have any of them here. I have started packing. I mean, every day I go to Kano, I pack something, take it home. I never consider Abuja my home. Now, at the moment I finish my tenure, I'm looking for a sabbatical in Hamburg, University of Hamburg in Germany, and they are very interested in accepting me. So, and they have shown me where I can get funding for that, because I like in Nigeria where you go to another university and there's this payment, your former university pays you, and then the new university pays you. In Germany they will not. What they will do is that they will just simply point to you scholarships that will support your stay in Germany, like DAD scholarship or the Humboldt scholarship or something like that. So I'm looking into all those, but that's where I want to go, Germany, where I can really also do some work. I enjoyed my stay in Poland, and I think Germany will be very good.
Now, in all that you have said, yes, you like to enjoy yourself doing what you do. How much time do you have for your family?
All the time in the world. I'm always with them because we're always together. My family is very small. I have only one wife, and I have absolutely, definitely no intention of getting another wife, because I have a wonderful woman who is more than 4 wives rolled in one. She's absolutely wonderful. My children, 2 of them are grown up, male, female, they are married. One of them is not even living in Nigeria. She's living in the Middle East. So they are not here. I have a 22-year-old son who is attending university, and he is into music himself. And he is a very reserved and quiet person, so he goes into his room, locks his door, and that's cool with me, absolutely cool with me. I have a 12-year-old daughter who is absolutely amazing. She's into internet, she's into selfies, and all that, standing in front of a mirror and making paces and then taking pictures and all that. Doing the typical teenage thing that girls do. So my wife and myself are fairly most of the time alone. We sit down, discuss what we can discuss, those of the family. But then she discovered YouTube on her phone, and that's it. So you go to the home, to my house, it's just like any other home. Anybody who is together there is on their phone, pressing buttons, talking to people. So we're talking to others, but not to each other. And I'm pretty cool with that. I understand this is a trend. It's not something that I can reverse. It's not something that I can stop. I don't want to even stop it. Okay, I want to encourage it, because the more we deal with virtual communities, the more we understand the world, and the more tolerant we tend to become of the world. Because it is all this locked up culture of not understanding, not trying to understand what other people are doing, that are giving us profiling nature of other people. But now you know that other people have voices, and you can listen to those voices, and you can interact with them on WhatsApp, on Telegram, on Instagram, or whatever kind of gram they are coming up with. And to me, again, that's very good. So it's just like a typical family. Everybody is obsessed with their phones.
Their phones.
Yeah.
Finally, Prof, you have achieved so much, especially in revolutionizing the arts, talking about literature, talking about music and film. What are your final words? I mean, what's your message? Not just to the art community back in Kano or in the Hausa, land, but basically all around Nigeria, because we are making statements and we need to make better statements.
Be who you are. Don't be nobody else. And don't let nobody tell you to be what they are. Just be who you are. That's it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Can I have you rap again? Would I be asking for too much?
Hey, Normus G. I hope you can hear this. I am Normus G. I'm harder than steel. I never steal. I have a Jeep and I'm rolling the steel. Something like that.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. I'm the only vice chancellor in Nigerian university system that can rap.
Exactly.
If there's any other VC who can rap, please do so. Let's have a rap competition on NTA. You come, I rap, you rap, and then who will win? I'll win.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, ma'am.
You're
welcome.
It's been fun talking to you.
Well, I hope so. Same here with me.
Thank you very much.
All right. You're welcome.
Technology, the mother of all inventions, has influenced various aspects of human existence